So I just finished watching The Killer's Game, which was directed by J.J. Perry, and it stars a really good cast of some really funny people anchored by Big Dave Bautista. There's a lot of talented people in here. Sofia Boutella, Terry Crews, and Klementieff, just to name a few. Big Dave plays super assassin Joe Flood, who finds out that he's suffering from a terminal illness, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And he and his boss/mentor Zvi, played by Ben Kingsley, set up a lucrative contract for another assassin to end his life without warning. But Joe ends up not only finding out that a mixed up lab report means that he's actually perfectly healthy, but that his hit woman doesn't really care about the contract and is planning to murder him anyway. So this spurs a huge mix of other seasoned killers for hire, which complicates matters when they want to take out the initial assassin and get the huge payday that comes with taking Joe down. Now this flick is based on the 1997 novel of the same name, and just looking at the star power that they got for this thing, the fact that Bautista is starring in an action comedy, I was actually kind of curious to check this one out. And after finishing The Killer's Game, I can tell you a couple of things from the get-go. First of all, this movie is consistently entertaining. Number two, some of the kills in this and the action sequences in here are some of the most creative I've seen in a while. And number three, I think The Killer's Game is the perfect turn your brain off movie. Like, if you go into this and you're not really expecting much of plot and you're not really expecting to really dig deep into why Joe Flood is a hitman, what actually motivates him to be a hitman, you're not really going to get a whole lot of that here. Not to say that this movie lacks any sort of character development at all, but this is absolutely hell-bent on entertaining the audience. And I was absolutely entertained watching The Killer's Game. I think a lot of that has to do with this cast, especially from Dave Bautista, who, in my opinion, continues to do no wrong. Especially as an actor, when it comes to, again, and I've said it before and I'll say it a million more times, I love The Rock, I love John Cena, but I feel like of all the actors who made the jump from the WWE into Hollywood, Bautista is the one who I feel like has really centered in and honed in on his acting craft, and I feel like he's mastered it the most. Not that Rock and Cena haven't, but Bautista just has a grip on this acting thing, and he's really damn good at it. He shares some really solid chemistry with everybody in this movie. Sofia Boutella plays the romantic interest in here for him. And I will admit that even though the performance is solid, it's not the most interesting character, and that does lead to a fairly slow first act. I don't really think The Killer's Game gets started fully as a movie until about 20-25 minutes deep. That's when Big Dave as Joe Flood actually gets the diagnosis of Creutzfeldt-Jakob. And my brother, who I was watching the movie with tonight, was telling me all about the disease and the symptoms, and it's not fully accurate how they present it in The Killer's Game, but man, it's debilitating. And I'll tell you this much, I love how entertaining this movie was overall, but I was kind of wishing that the movie took a bit of a different turn. I actually feel like this movie and this plot would have been a little bit more interesting had our main character been suffering from a really horrible disease, like CTE, for example. Not to say that what they did was bad, but I feel like if this movie were to be more effective as an action movie and to make itself stand out, I think it would have been more interesting had your main character been suffering from a terminal illness. Because that's another thing. This movie and the whole reason why it exists and why we have conflict here is because doctors made a whoopsie. Now, I understand. We're human beings. We all make mistakes. There's no way in real life that doctors could be that stupid. I don't buy that for a second. Matter of fact, this script actually does have some pretty unrealistic scenarios and characters in here. Some of these characters are written way too over the top to be way too stupid for their own good. To the point where you even wonder, okay, yeah, is Joe Flood actually in any danger with these blokes? But I swear to God, I'm not making this up. I don't know how big of a spoiler this is, but your main villain is basically contacting all these other hitmen through what I can best describe as a Tinder app for killers. If Apple knew that this was a thing in real life, they would shut that down almost instantly. There's one sequence in Joe Flood's apartment where he's beating down a bunch of these people that was super ultra creative and gruesome to watch. And while I applaud The Killer's Game for its creativity and the fight choreography, the effects department maybe could have used a little bit more work. A lot of this blood didn't look as realistic as it should have. So it kind of looked a little bit fake to me, which is ironic considering that some of this fight choreography had some of Bautista's famous wrestling repertoire in there. Batista bombs, spine buster, suplex. you know, the works. But I think this movie really is propelled by the creativity that's on display here, Bautista's central performance, and the performances of everybody, really. Klementieff reunites with Big Dave in this one after being Drax and Mantis in the Guardians movies, and it was really cool to see their hero versus villain dynamic as opposed to being best friends. So I'm sure they had a real blast on set putting this together. You also have Terry Crews, which... man, I love that dude. He's just so freaking funny. Everything he touches. I've loved Terry Crews growing up as an actor ever since I was like 9 years old when I saw him in The Longest Yard. Cheeseburger Eddie. Don't forget Cheeseburger Eddie. Off topic here, but how come the funniest Terry Crews performances always revolve around him eating food? Him in The Longest Yard was cheeseburgers. Him in Brooklyn Nine-Nine was yogurt. I don't know what it is. You also have the legendary Ben Kingsley in this one doing some really fun character work in this. And Bautista is also not the only wrestler to appear in this cast. You also see current WWE megastar Drew McIntyre in this one, albeit very briefly. Man, I'm so proud of him. He was so damn funny. And great in the action sequences, too. Like, if you don't watch wrestling now, Drew McIntyre is a big dude. He's a badass dude. Scottish warrior, big DM hunk of a man. And for his first feature performance, if my memory serves me right, if I'm not mistaken, this is his first movie role. I think he knocked it out of the park. I think once he retires, I wouldn't mind seeing him in more movies. So yeah, even though this script and this direction and this camera work and some of the editing choices I'm not all that hot for, I think it's a very easy watch, albeit from a slow start. And I think if you're an action movie fanatic, if you're a fan of Big Dave, I think you'll enjoy this movie just fine. I'm going to give The Killer's Game a C+. There's just some things that are a little bit too unrealistic. But even still, not a bad watch by any stretch of the imagination, guys. Let me know what you think of The Killer's Game down in the comment section if you guys watched it. Who do you think is the best crossover from WWE to go into Hollywood? Lots that we can discuss over here and then some, my friends. Hit that subscribe button if you've stumbled across this channel for the first time. Hit that thumbs up as well if you enjoyed what you saw today. Stay tuned for more videos very soon, and thank you again for your patience with me as I navigate a huge crossover phase in my life. It's the end of an era in this studio over the next couple weeks. I'm going to be moving pretty soon, so the studio is going to look very different from now on. I'll tell you that much. But after that, finishing 2024 off strong with a lot of big releases coming out, and I can't wait to have you guys along for the ride for some really fun discussion, guys. Y'all are the best. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.